existing object. What was your conception of the subtle body before retreat, and what is it now? In the more advanced stages of meditation, when you learn to hold a more gross object, you begin to move on into working the subtle body. The subtle body is where the more finer aspects of your thought and breath move through your body in the sense of like the mental plane. A thought, it doesn't have shape or form. It's more the shape of ideas, and it's related to your emotional body also and your thought process. When it's disturbed, the winds don't run smoothly. Your breath is such a phenomenon that we don't even breathe ourselves. Something else is breathing us. So in taking the breath, it's this great tool to get into the subtle body and see the relationship of your breath to your thoughts and your breath to the emotion and how those run through the body. You begin to find your emotions. When you get really quiet and still and fine, you can begin to tell by where the breath is running in your nostrils, not just right or left or both nostrils evenly. You can begin to get so quiet and still and so in tune to your inner, your thought process. You can get fine to see, is the breath running in my upper nostril or in my inner nostril or my outer nostril? And slowly, in my own practice, this was so exciting for me, so thank you for the question. I was trying to learn about how those winds run so I could learn what thoughts were happening and to work with how to harness them. Because you have two basic main channels, your right and left. Through one, more of your anger, hatred runs, and through your left, more of your desire, wanting energies run. And we're doing that constantly all day. I want this, I don't want that. And so that's running. We practice something called Nadi Shodhana, and there's many levels of it, but the basic practice is an inhale through your right nostril, and it runs down this channel in the inside of the body, and exhale through the left channel, and it cleans that left channel, and you'll reverse it, breathe in to the right, exhale to the left, and you begin to neutralize where the winds are going. And then suddenly it's very harmonized and you can actually calm yourself down. And by working on that more slowly, learning to keep your mind steady and still on your breath and where it's running, you can begin to find out where those run, and then in relation to what chakras are being activated. If you find you're more, sexually driven and you want to have more of the feelings of that passion and energy with your heart, you can learn to channel your energies up to your heart by thinking about how those winds are running in your body. So what was it before retreat and after? I work a lot in there, and it's very hard to stay quiet, to work so clear that you know you're actually with the winds and in them. It takes a big degree of being quiet and still and in tune, that fine. So I work on this every day. I kind of do my general breathing when I go up, and I'll clean my channels. And then I'll try and take that energy and first mentally and take it through my central channel, which is where love and wisdom runs. And so we want actually to kind of cut off ultimately the winds flowing through the right and left and just stay in that sweet spot that we've kind of been talking a little bit about what happens in retreat. So I just work on it, and I see I'm gonna have to work in it a lot more to get to a level of some kind of expertise on that. So talk to me if you want to know more, because I love this stuff. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Who wants to go next?
Hi, let me see. Maybe I'll start with the easy one. What is a javelina? And what did I learn from them? That's a hard one. A javelina is a wild pig, and we all had amazing experiences with our animals. And the pigs used to come in packs, and we'd feed them and we'd pet them, and they were incredible. We would take care of the males that would, the males would get kicked out sometimes of the tribe. And I had one, Chubby, his name was. And he was amazing. He hung out with me for about 1.5 years, and then one day he came with a girlfriend. And I lived happily ever after. They made love in front of me if anyone asked me to email a picture. It was a great experience. I used it as a Valentine's Day card. And so we had amazing experiences with all the animals. Like I had a rattlesnake named Nagarjuna. She was with me the whole time, and I'd even step over her, and she would she'd just rattle at me and hiss at me, and but she wouldn't do anything. I think no one got bit by a rattlesnake in 3 years and 3 months. I saw like so many different animals, more animals than I would see in like the tropics. There was all these beautiful, even the ants were amazing. So I think that we all had incredible experiences with the animals, and javelins were really special. So if anyone wants a picture, I can.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Grant, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
What was
One thing.
sorry. What was one thing you learned that you have taken for granted in life before the retreat? But after the retreat, all of a sudden, you saw that your entire life with this thing, it was taken for granted.
Sure. I would say life itself. It's in retreat I had 4 people die, 2 got cancer over the course of the 3 years. And I had one really dramatic example during the retreat. And I was outside, and I think I was doing mantras. I was sitting under a tree outside doing mantras, and these blue jays that would come by all the time. And there's one, and they would fly, and they're kind of noisy and boisterous birds. Like as far as birds go, like they're kind of like. So the blue jays are flying around. Come on. And they were in a pair. And then there's these ocotillos, which are these really tall, thin, spiny things. They go up like sometimes 12 feet up, and they float around like almost like a spiky frond. And this one blue jay was sitting on one, and another one was sitting on another at the top, and they're just sort of waving down. And the one dropped down. I guess he saw something at the base, and he dropped down, and I was sitting there, and a rattlesnake hit him just as he hit the ground, and the rattlesnake got him, and he just he freaks out, and he's flapping and flapping and flapping, and I run over and I see that the fangs got him right, like one right in the heart and one right in the neck, and it was a full-grown rattlesnake with a bird this big. There's nothing to be done. He was dead. He was dead before he hit the ground, right? And so I just watched, and I watched him go, and I watched him flapping and flapping, and then he started to stop, and then he got quiet, and he shot up about 4 feet up in the air, and literally, like in the cartoons where their feet are like this, that's exactly what he was flat on his back, and he was dead. And I was like, in 30 seconds ago, he was with his other bird friend flying around, and like that fast, and I was like, it hit me viscerally, like that's how that goes. Like nobody ever goes out and thinks today I'm gonna get hit by a car. Like it doesn't happen like that. It just happens, and then you're dead. or you have a heart attack or an aneurysm, and it can come like that. So the other bird freaked out and he was screaming, and it was just like this really stressful, horrible thing. And when, especially when you're in retreat and you're really quiet, it was really intense. It was like, there's a murder! I didn't have a phone, or I might have called. I'd like to report a killer. So anyway, that was one of the things that I kind of like took for granted in retreat. That now, like, I was aware of it, and I was pretty well aware of death, but it just seemed like that was a real big message that I needed to get while I was in there.
She says something that you wish you could have learned about it earlier.
Yeah, I wish I'd learned that earlier, and I might have worked harder younger. You know, I almost, like, when I was younger, I kind of just I just assumed I was immortal, right? As you do, you know, and did lots of stupid things that endangered myself, and I wish I probably hadn't done that. So, I wish I'd learned that earlier.
Thank you. Thank you. Who wants to go next? Jeff, you want to go? What? Chris?
What was one of the scariest moments, and what did you do to feel safe? What was one of the most blissful moments, and how, when did it occur in relation to the scariest?
Precise question.
Maybe web game questions.
So, you know, when I first read the question, one thing popped into my mind, and then I was like, is that really the scariest? But I know why it came into my mind, so I'll tell you what it is. You actually can get into fights with your partner in a deep 3-year retreat, you know, and they'll probably be more intense than like anything in the outside world. But anyway, so once I found myself going away from my partner and separating myself into another room and shutting the door. And in retreat, you get so, you see yourself creating, like you see what that's going to create in the future. And it's like everything is so metaphorical. And it's just like, I just put a wall in my heart between me and my partner, and that's not what I want, you know? But it's like I was compelled, like, and, you know, so I don't know if that was the scariest moment, but that's the one that really, like, karma is the scariest thing, right? Because karma drove me to do that. And you know, so you just have to recognize what you're doing and just say, you know, I don't want this, and then you open up the door, and then you just go and you apologize, and you, like, maybe you get on your knees, you know. The most blissful moment, whatever, I can't. I think probably the most blissful things were in meditation, because you just experience incredible bliss that you can't imagine. And everyone should meditate.
Stay in school.
Yeah, I think I would have to say the bliss that you get at stillness, and you know, really good meditations at stillness are just you just can't imagine that kind of those feelings. I would have to say that's the most blissful, but I don't know. There were so many. Retreat was blissful. It was amazing. It was so amazing. We felt like we were in heaven most of the time, you know, or like a Buddha paradise. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
have a question addressed to me. It says, James, what is your advice on letting go of anger and resentment? I love the Galupa tradition because they'll break everything down into steps. The teachings are like just impeccable for it's like, okay, here's the problem, here's the instructions, here's how you fix it. So fortunately in our tradition, we have amazing instructions. And they usually start with first, you have to recognize what a problem anger is. Like anger destroys so much seeds of virtue. And so if you study the ACI courses, if you study the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, there's a whole chapter with contemplation after contemplation after contemplation about the problems that anger causes. And they're meant to be meditations. And so you look at it and it breaks it down. And the essence of it is, look, something bad has happened. How does me wanting to hurt somebody else, lash out at somebody else, blame somebody else, how is that possibly going to fix something bad has happened? And when your mind can start to see, yeah, something bad has happened, but lashing out, trying to add to other people's pain, trying to hit back, that just makes something else bad happen. And so you gain the wisdom to very quickly start to end these karmic cycles. And you have to use wisdom to overcome the emotion. The emotion is strong. The emotion is habitual. The emotion is something deep. It's only with wisdom that you can see, I'm not helping by trying to add to somebody's pain. When you start to see that very clearly in your mind, then you can start to let go of things. I do want to fold this into another question because I think it's an important one and I know some people really want it addressed and I don't want to avoid it. The question says, the tragedy that happened with Lama Christie and her partner during retreat sent tidal waves through the Sangha and caused a lot of turmoil and confusion for many practitioners, including me. How did that affect everyone who stayed in retreat, and what advice would you give people who still struggle to understand that tragedy and make peace with it? I want to say very clearly, Lama Christie helped me deeply. Deeply. For many years, helped me. And so I am totally grateful to her teachings on meditation, the Bhakti series, magnificent. I hope those teachings spread in the world. Something bad happened. Nobody wanted it to happen. There's not a person on this planet who wanted that tragedy to happen. It is a tragedy we all feel deeply. But we have to forgive. That is the only way it heals. And this is a time for healing among all of us. We all came and realized this is a tragedy. None of us wanted it to have happened. But we don't want to add to people's pain by trying to find people to blame. That doesn't fix something bad happened. What we can do is move forward and improve our own minds. What we can do is we can be discerning with our own behavior. And we can take responsibility that way so that kind of tragedy doesn't happen again. But this need to add to people's pain, please, time to forgive. Forgive, let it go. And it is my sincere hope that we will someday see Lama Christie teach again in a magnificent, beautiful, beneficial way that she did previously.
So I think that question was addressed to all of us. So that's James's opinion. Mine's a little different. I also think that forgiveness is extremely important, and but I also think having open discussions about things is healthy and important. So if anybody would like to talk to me one-on-one about anything that happened at all, I'd be happy to talk to you and give you the most frank answer I can possibly give you. So, because I think that's healing, because I think a lot of people were hurt by the things that happened. People in the retreat and people out of the retreat, like all over. It was a tragedy, as James said. So I'm willing to discuss it with anybody at all. Like I was there. So if you want to hear a firsthand account of my account, then I'm happy to talk to you. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this one's kind of an interesting question, which some other people might like to also jump in on. It says, please share your experiences with, quote, attraction / AKA addiction during retreat. In parentheses, example, sex, drugs, alcohol, food, talking. So, why did I get this question? So you guys can jump in too. I don't know, so it's interesting. Well, I would like to say, just to sort of jump on what has been shared too, with that resentment and anger, I think that if you have that, it drives you to addictive behaviors. So that's what I have found, like in my life, and I've suffered, I struggled a lot with addictions in the past, and I found that, like was shared earlier, that fear was what was driving it, ultimately. And so if you address the underlying fears, that behavior ends up subsiding, and so of course you go into retreat and you want to be a holy person and everything, and guess what, you still have fear, if you're me, and so you still have to deal with it. So I found that although I was in retreat and being quiet most of the time, that I found these fears would crop up, and then sometimes the train of thought would lead back to the old behaviors that I might have done a long time ago to deal with that fear, right? But the thing is, being a retreat, you're sort of away from those things. You can't quite get access to them. So it's a great blessing because, you can't just run and, go do a lot of these things. I couldn't really get drugs in retreat if I wanted to. I mean, I guess maybe I don't know, but, I don't know. I guess I could. I mean, but I mean, and I don't know. So, yes, you could order food. We did have food. We could order, and I'm sure you could, abuse it. But, and I'm sure maybe some other people want to talk about that one. But, I would say, though, that what I really saw in retreat is that you take away the accessibility of those things, and then you find that, you still have to treat whatever was driving you to use them. So in retreat, I ended up doing some of the things I used to do prior to retreat to deal with that, to treat that, and my approach is a little different. And I appreciate what was shared in the Galupa lineage about wisdom, as I found I'm more of the bhakti yogi person, and so my experience is I have to surrender, like totally, and it has to be like, I can't always apply wisdom when I'm going through these emotional upheavals, like I really can't. I'm like, so my best bet then usually is stop, drop, and totally surrender and just beg for it to be removed. And that's why I think, again, there's a lot of different, practices and techniques for our different personality types, and so then I allowed the wisdom of the enlightened beings to flow through me. I would surrender my will, and just be like, okay, I can't do it. Oh God, I really wish I could overeat this food, whatever we had, for soak, I guess, maybe a cake or something. I'm just using this example. And then it's like, okay, that's what I want to do, I think, but not really. So I would surrender that will, and then I would just, it was like a grace would come through, and I don't know how else to explain it. I would say in the Buddhist tradition, you could say it's like the enlightened wisdom would come through. And again, it wasn't me logically doing it, because if I'm logically doing it because I'm an addict alcoholic, my experience is I generally, my logic will lead me back to want to drink and do drugs again, and I can logically get us there tonight, all of you guys. I don't use my logic to treat that. I surrender it completely. you know what I mean? I have to. And I'm, you know, the will is amazing. You know, you can convince yourself of a lot of things. It's dangerous. I mean, that's how cults get started. That's why things get all crazy and weird, you know? And so, so I'm grateful. I just want to say too, this, and I didn't say in the share earlier, was that I feel like in this retreat, I learned critical thinking skills like I have never learned before in my life. Like I learned how to really analyze, break things down, be honest about it. You know, don't pretend like something's not going on. No, actually be honest about how you feel. Oh, you don't like how this feels. Let's be honest about it. You know, for me, I have to do that. And then maybe I can apply some other solutions. But first, it's got to be like, look, this really hurts and this is painful and I'm really sad about this. You know, okay. And now I can look at how I'm going to deal with it. And so I'm grateful because I learned that from people in retreat, you know, a lot. And, you know, like some of my other teachers earlier on just helped to really understand that, you know, that's, you have to test it out, you know, and you have to break it down. So yeah, so that's how I dealt with it. I just kept breaking down any ideas of attractions and addictions, you know, behaviors, just kept breaking down to the source of where that was coming from. And so. And if you want to talk more about that after this, I will also, because there's more things I would share, but not to a public audience, so.
So we'll do one more round, but you haven't had a question yet, have you?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Show the first. Oh, there we go.
Choose to be. What role did silence have in the overall experience process? I don't know how to answer it exactly, but I know the experiences of it when it was really silent were just blissful and heavenly. Getting to silence, and I'm equating it a bit with stillness, getting to stillness, and what kind of discipline it takes to be able to hold your mind on a set object and watch out for the sleepiness or the agitation that comes and shake you off, and learning to recognize the triggers before they happen that push you off your object. And it's mind training. It's like, no, stay here. It's like very much like a little kid. It's like, no, I told you to stay here. No, stay here. And sometimes it's really not that interesting, you know, to sit and still and meditate on your breath. It's like, oh, I don't know, eat or I don't know. And so much the training for me in getting to the silence and stillness was learning to really love the object that you were meditating. So the breath or the sensation of the breath or whatever your object is had become the most interesting thing in the universe for you. So much that you didn't want to go anywhere else. So as part of the work was kind of like tricking yourself and find out, okay, well, what happens at the beginning of the breath? And what happens at the end of the breath? And what happens in the middle of the breath? And what happens before the very end of the breath? And how quiet and slowly in this deep silence, in the deepest silence, in the deepest quiet, in the deepest stillness, the way that you know yourself, it can cease to exist and dissolve into this, you know, there's a way to talk about this emptiness and wisdom word that we keep throwing around, and one is the lack of all things, you know, a negative aspect. There's another way to talk about it, that's the absolute. You become the of everything. You know, the of everything exists in the of everything. And you are of that, and there is no difference in anything else. And getting to this stillness and silence was so beautiful, and being able to be so quiet that maybe you were sitting outside by a tree or in the grass, and so quiet that the foxes came over, and you surprised them. They didn't even know that you were there. It's like, wow, like repeatedly. It's like, whoa. And it's so beautiful, you know, you kind of want that, like, I know, I'm communing with nature, but when you do it with from a place of silence, you get this bliss of being connected to everything, and the sense of time becomes so vast, and you're that thing that you could be everything and nothing, you know, and there's no contradiction there. So that's my take, and someone else might come at it from a different point, but thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I have a question here. It says, what karmic seeds ripened in a day, and please give an example. So in the retreat, like I had mentioned, the last 6 months were magical, and I think it was an upward spiral to get me to this point where I saw this interconnectedness, but there was just beautiful things happening all the time with the retreatants amongst us. We would, and I think we all have this experience, especially I've noticed it with the ones that were closer to me, like there would be this interconnectedness. Things would happen to all of us at the same time. We'd come out of, one of our deep retreats, and almost all of us had like some kind of psychic ESP experiences. It was beautiful. And also, like in the mornings, I would do my 6 times a day book, and I load the book, and sometimes like the vows would come alive during the day, and like, oh my God, I just wrote that this morning. I was totally on it, conscious about it, and and something would happen. So I just really was seeing how I was creating my reality. Something interesting happened, and this was at the beginning of the retreat. You probably remember there was a big fire, and when I saw it, it was like, oh wow, that looks like a really wild cloud. And then I didn't know it was a fire. None of us knew it was a fire at first. It looked like this wild, crazy cloud, but it kept getting bigger and lasting many more days. And we had no clue what was going on the outside world. And we were later, when we left the retreat, told that that fire was like just stopped around the corner of a mountain. So they had already rented homes in Bowie to move us to in a few hours, but the fire stopped. And I was kind of joking during that time with my companions around me, because they were really in deep meditation on the meditation that Lama Christie had just given to us on the elements, and shifting the elements. And I was like, oh, I'm getting good karma of praying for you guys to change the elements, but we had no idea that it had actually happened. So I'm really sure that Lama Christie and some of these other retreatants were magically planting seeds for this outer event to just stop magically around the corner. And there's another thing that was kind of interesting is talking about addictions, food addictions. I ended up getting really obsessed with food because I had no other distractions, and I wanted to experiment on myself. It was a great experiment on my own. So I was trying all different diets, and it was great. I figured out the vegan raw diet is the best diet, and the more I thought about it, the more I was meditating on my diet and food, and I got addicted to basically it was a obsession that became an addiction. And when I came, so this didn't happen one day. This happened through the retreat. When I came out of retreat, I saw some of the ripenings of looking around my world, and there's all these vegan restaurants and vegetarians, and so that was great. I was like, oh, I did a great job. And then I looked around a little bit more, and you see all these obese people, and I was like, my God, that was my binges. And I, binged on cake and things, and didn't pay attention to over-consumerism, and all of a sudden I'm seeing over-consumerism as like a huge problem in our world. So those are just some that didn't happen overnight, but I see that when I planted something in retreat, just as simple as a diet, that I come out into this world and see the good and the bad of what I was planting in retreat. So I don't know if anyone has.
A really quick fun one that I think a lot of people on the retreat had was it wasn't so much active planting of stuff, but I would think of something like from my childhood, some weird thing, like, oh, I remember that green dinky car with the blue tires that I had when I was 7, and then a couple of days had passed, and somebody in the retreat would walk up and go, I have this green dinky car with blue tires. I thought you might want it. And we were just like, come on. You're kidding me. And I think a lot of people, bizarre stuff, like stuff that's not like, it would be a miracle if it was a coincidence because it was so specific. And I think a lot of people had that experience where you think of something just in passing, like not really actively. And then somebody would come by and go, I thought you might want this. And you're just, wow, that's tricky. So, anyway, that's like a fun thing.
Thanks.
You were in silence, so how could they say that?
You can write, you can sign.
We all learn to sign.
Hi. Bye.
Car.
Hello.
Way.
Kristen. Oh, yeah. And then you, right?
What are you doing next? What are your plans? And how can we help you with them? So I can only speak for me and James. I mentioned in my talk that it's like we just want to be, we want our minds in Dharma all the time. So we're starting a nonprofit called GoBeyond.org, and we're going to be teaching people how to meditate from authentic scriptural sources. And yeah, so we've been focusing a lot on building that out. It's going to be really exciting. We're going to reach a lot of people.
But there's nothing right now because I'm learning all new web coding skills. You know, which basically is me watching 10-year-olds and YouTube videos. And until Jeremy comes home from school and posts the latest video, I do style sheets. But we hope to have things ready by the fall.
I was like, if you send them GameStop cards, you could get faster.
That's awesome. Thank you. Do you have a question? Another question?
That was it. Oh. Can you do that?
The cure for mental afflictions is love. What
Yeah.
does this entail? How do you know what kind of love they need?
Well, when you decode the mental affliction like love or mental affliction like anger, and then you get to, it can be a mental affliction. And then you get to the fear underneath, and you realize that that fear is a lack of love or safety or something along those lines. I think if you make your best efforts to make everyone around you feel loved, secure, safe, worthy, respected, all of those things, if you make a goal of doing that, I think you're going to do okay. It's scripturally it says only a Buddha can tell you what specific karma tells you what specific thing, but I think being nice to people is going to work out.
Yes.
Just saying.
Oh, actually, you did already, right? You answered one already, right? Again? Yeah.
No, she only answered one.
Oh, no, one. Sorry, my head somewhere.
This one's for all of us. It
Yeah.
said, would each of the retreatants please tell us how they are supporting themselves being supported back in New York City? Thank you. Or being supported back. So, you know, right now I'm a sort of a wandering yogini, and so I need to. I probably will be settling down soon, and I'm not sure where that's going to be. So I don't know. So right now I've been blessed with my friend Bimala, and we've been doing yoga stuff together, and Abigail, and staying over there with her, and
Andrew.
and the kindness of them. But so yeah. So I don't know if I'm going to stay in New York City or what I'm going to do next. And that's my story. So.
Kristen and I are out in farm country in Pennsylvania, which is a really sweet, lovely way to transition back in the world. And we're totally dependent on the kindness of her parents. And there's a line from this movie, Fanboys, where he's being teased about living above his parents' garage. And he keeps saying, it's not a garage, it's a carriage house. So we're living in the carriage house.
What do you guys think?
We are a friend of ours had an extra house and in Pennsylvania. Yeah, we did. She's like, because she built this house, but we did. We helped build a lot of the cabins. A lot of us here did at retreat. And anyway, the Parma's another story. So we're staying there. I don't want to talk for you. He's working on.
Yeah, I just got a job. It's letting my dreams come true. Retreat, I'm working at a grocery store 3 days a week, just enough to pay my cell phone bill and pay for food on the table. So I'm working a crappy part-time job. Welcome to my life.
And he
Dreams can't come
spends almost 24 hours working on music. He produces music, writes his own music, his own albums.
I also started a record company, and I'm about to sign this beautiful young lady to a record contract, and I'm writing and producing music as well. So. But the grocery thing's the main thing.
There's something that I
keep the music as a backup.
There's something that I realized a bit in retreat when I was investigating how things happened in my past, and I saw that there were some times that I was flowing with the universe and everything just happened perfectly, better than I would have ever imagined. And then there were times when I was trying to make something happen, and it just wasn't, but I was like going to force it, and I was so, driven to reach a certain goal. I was going to give it everything, and I wasn't going to give up. And in retreat, I started to see, like, okay, there's times when the seeds are there for you to happen, and if you do the work, you don't have to worry so much about the goals you have if you planted the seeds. So it's kind of a different process. One was like, I'm going to make this happen, and one was, oh, I'm going to allow this happen. I'm going to take care of whatever I need to take care of and who's with me in that moment. And for the most part, coming out of retreat, things that I wanted to happen, just kind of, I wanted to have a road trip with my mom and just kind of go to certain places and visit my family after retreat. But she was living in another country, and I came out of retreat and I just left her a note for her birthday, and she's like, call me back, as soon as you can. I'm up here and I need you to come see me. And she ended up having a car and coming down to drive with me just when I wanted to be with her, and we did. We got to go visit, do our road trip together. I didn't have a house, but a friend offered us a house to work in. I'm now coming back to New York, and I have some friends who I love and want to catch up with, and I have some jobs.
What specific jobs are you doing? What are you doing?
Oh, yeah. I'm teaching yoga and doing massage therapy, and
Do you have a license for that?
So I do have to look for work. I don't feel too worried about it. I did look on Craigslist and saw lots of things that I could do and try, and have to get my resume together and go pound the pavement, and I'm trying to stay open and not worry about it when I start to feel like, oh, I really have to get something now. Like, I'm not, that last $100 like falling low, but I'm just.
Literally.
Yeah. But I know how to work. I grew up in New York and can do the temp job or the thing. So I'm coming back to the job force day after tomorrow. Somehow, something.
And Vimla, what's your plans?
Well, I came out of retreat and have been taking care of my parents, which is something they're my highest karmic objects. And every day I prayed for them, and I came out and they're doing better than I could have imagined. And so I've been spending a lot of time with Mom and Dad and teaching them how to meditate. And my mother is a better single-pointed meditator than I am. And she's actually getting the emptiness stuff now too, which is really exciting. And it's been beautiful working with her. She does chair yoga for seniors who for arthritis, and I highly recommend Peggy Cappy, audio video for elders. And so that's been giving me the chance to be in the moment as much as I could. Being a type A personality, I always had to do something or create something. And so it's interesting to have, like, just to have this time to sit back and have all these opportunities come to me and not take them. And it's really fun. I'm kind of like getting to see where I could be the most beneficial. And even though I sound like I can't really meditate, that's still one of my favorite things to do. And so I'd like to work with women primarily, although I come against you guys. But I'd like to work with women in wellness, so meditation and yoga and diet. And I love Asia, so I have planted some seeds. I plant seeds every morning, and they seem to be working really well. I've gotten some amazing opportunities coming up in Asia, which I'm sitting back and just watching, planting the seeds and letting them arise without trying to grasp on them right now, and just focusing on the parents and getting them to this part of their lives that they're going towards.
Thank you. So just one last question, and then we'll show you a quick video and say thank you. But James, you had your last question.
Sure. The question says, what does this teaching say about Jesus? And yeah, I agree with Grant. Just awesome. The thing is, a lot of us in retreat found a need to go back to our Christian roots and just reread the Bible and reread the teachings of Jesus. And we had the time to really sit with them. And you would just be like, oh, I get it. That's amazing. And so I hope these teachings continue to flourish in the world. For me, Jesus became such a embodiment of the teachings. And I guess it's a little ironic, but the truth is, I'm a better Christian now by becoming a Buddhist. And so for me, I needed that.
Thank you. Thank you. Steve,